Alright, so what we need to do is go ahead and keep working on this. Let me go ahead and open up my image clip viewer here real quick. I should actually edit that out of the video. Alright, so we have our image clip viewer here. What we need to do is create this little piece here where the CPU tower is going to sit on top of. So let's go ahead and create that, which is actually going to be pretty easy. We can see it has some contours to it and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these objects here. Okay, I'm going to go to my top view. I'm going to go to isolate selection, and you probably guessed it, I'm going to use the curve tool again, and I'm just going to come in here and just in sort of a freeform kind of way, kind of like if I was using a pen or something. Just going to go ahead and just freeform that right there. Just kind of just freestyle it, I guess you can say. I'm going to go ahead and snap that right there. I'm going to take point snapping off because that could mess me up right now in this case. And this all looks pretty good. Let me actually move those back a little bit like that. Okay. And this looks pretty good. Maybe I'll move that something like this. Something like that looks pretty good. Now I want this is kind of squiggly line over here. I don't want that. So I'm going to do is select them all. I'm going to make sure that collapse points for snapping absolute translation is turned on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to COG global, and I'm going to hold down control and snap them to that line right there. And I forgot to pick that one right there at the end. So let's pick all of these. Actually, let's turn COG off. And there we go. They all snapped there correctly. Let me grab all of them. Okay, so now we get a nice straight line, which is what I wanted. Alright. Now, let me actually make sure that these endpoints are exactly on this thick black line there, which is our global x-axis. Alright. Let me go to this view here, camera view, freeze modeling on that. I'm going to hit Control D. And this time I'm not going to go -1 on the X. I'm going to go -1 on the Z. And I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to Create Curve, Merge, select that once, twice. There you go. I'm going to delete the original. With this curve selected, I'm just going to go down here and freeze the modeling on that. And I'm going to move that up. About here's good. Okay, that's pretty good. So it's pretty easy at this point. You could probably imagine what I'm going to do. I'm going to select the curve. I'm going to go to Create Polymesh, Curves to Mesh, and there we go. I'm going to increase the amount of contours, max it out at 8. I can actually go higher than that, but I'll keep it at 8. 8's fine. And I'm going to go to Extrude. I'm going to add some extrusion to this, not too much. Something like 0.01. And let's try 0.1. Yep, 0.1 will be fine. Let's go to bevel, give it some depth, knock down the sampling step because it's just too much. Something like that's going to look pretty good. So let's go over here and take that depth down. I don't know, something like 0.02 seems pretty good. Alright, so there we go. So that part's done. Just like the image. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to freeze modeling on that object. I'm going to grab that original curve. I'm going to hit delete. Don't need it anymore. Okay, so now we have that part done. Now the next thing to do is to create these objects up here, which are these sort of little, I don't know, platforms, I guess, that you place your monitor on top of. And then you get another one here for placing books or something. It's not really necessary to model that. Our desk doesn't have to look exactly like that. But for the sake of the tutorial and for the sake of basically not leaving you hanging, I'm going to go ahead and model that for you so you can see how that's done. So that's actually very, very simple to do. I can actually recycle this object to do that. The reason being this object is basically the same exact shape, or basically same object as that one, only a little more narrow. But you know what? When I squash it down, it's probably not going to look too good. So I won't do that actually. Let me go ahead and switch this isolate selection off. And let me work in the top view. And the size of that isn't too big. It's not too small either. It takes up about a good quarter of the desk here. So let's go to create curve by CVs. And let's go ahead and create this object. So let's create it about, let me see. Let's start off here. Something like that will probably work out just fine. I'm going to hit exit tool. And I'm going to actually add a few more points to this to control it better. So let me go to modify curve, add points. I'm going to add a point here. I'm going to add a point down here. And honestly, I don't think I need to add more points than that. So I'm going to go to exit tool. I'm going to select this point. I'm going to snap it to the grid there. I'm going to snap this one to the grid there. And we should be good to go. Let me freeze modeling on that. And I'm going to take COG off. Now, one issue here is going to be that I'm going to have a little bit of a problem. And the problem is, since I created it here and not according to the global axis here, it's not going to symmetrize or make the duplicate correct. So what I need to do is actually move the actual the center pivot here. So what I'm going to do is hold down Alt. I'm going to move it over here. While holding down Alt, I can freeform move this pivot point wherever I want. And I'm going to hold down Control while I do that to place this pivot point about here, which will be good. And that's going to be its new axis. Okay. Now, if you see you're having problems with that, you probably have to go in here and turn on Modify Object Pivot. So sometimes you'll run into problems with that, and that'll be the cause. In this case, I'm not having any problems, so I'm good to go. So with this curve selected, I'm simply going to hit Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to go -1 on the X, and it actually placed it over here, which of course is not good. But if I move it and snap it over here, it'll actually work. So, I mean, that wasn't the best way to do it, but it worked, so whatever. Alright, so now that I have these here, with both of them selected, of course, I'm going to go over here to create curve, merge, select both of those points, creates a new one, delete the original. Alright, go to perspective view here, or camera view. Turn COG on, and this looks like it's going to be well above the glass here. So let's place it about here. I think actually about right here is going to be good. And it looks like it's about the right size too, in terms of the dimensions, the width and the height. Looks pretty good. Looks like we got a good size. If anything, we could scale up the end result anyway, so it makes no difference. Let's freeze modeling on that. Let's go to create polymesh, curves to mesh. I think you know the workflow by now. Let's create more contours to make it nice and smooth. Let's go to extrude and give it some length. Not too much, of course. I think 0.1 is going to work out just fine. Let's go to bevel. Let's take the sampling step down and let's add some depth to this. And let's look at our picture. It is a very soft bevel, so I think something like this is going to work out just fine. Actually, yeah, that looks great. Okay, so I'm constantly saving throughout this process, just in case. Okay, so let me close that. With this object selected, I'll freeze modeling. I'm going to grab that curve that curve that I had from before, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit I don't know if I should hit delete. Yeah, I'll hit delete. Okay, so now I have this nice object created for my monitor to sit on top of, and I need a couple of cylinders to just to pop them in there, so to speak. Okay, now the cylinders go connected to the back over there, and one goes connected to the side, which means that this is gonna have to come over to the side a bit, and it's gonna have to actually move back here, which means that it's too small. It's gonna have to be bigger. So I'm gonna scale it up. Now I don't want to scale it up like this because it's gonna increase the height right here. What I want to do is make sure that I scale base constraint on these two axes by coming in close right here and just making it bigger. And let me do that from the top view. So that'll look a lot better right there. Okay, that looks a lot better. Alright, now that looks closer to what this looks like right there, and I think that's a more reasonable size for a monitor to go on top of. So, there we go. Alright, we need to create those cylinders. They're going to just pop in right there. I'm too lazy to create a brand new cylinder, so what I'm going to do is go to wireframe. I'm going to steal these polygons again, these right there. Okay, I'm going to right click, extract polygons, and I'm going to delete the original. And the reason for that is we don't need those anymore, because since they're inside the pipe and you never see them, it's a waste of resources to do that. So I'll freeze modeling on this, move it on over. I'll use the top view to kind of guide me as to where I want to place this. I want to place it more like this. Okay, and I'll look at my picture. They're kind of thick. They're about, actually, yeah, they are pretty thick, these cylinders right here. So I think I'm going to leave it at this size. If anything, I could change the thickness later. I'm going to select the top polygons here, Control D, and extrude them and pull them up. Now let me go to, say, this view right here, and here's my little piece right there I'm trying to connect it to. I'll connect it to it up there, and I'm going to delete those top polygons because we're never going to see them anyway. And there it is. Now it is a little bit thick. I don't like that it's so thick and fat, so I'm going to select it. Let me go to shaded view so it looks a lot easier to see this. I'm going to switch to my scale tool. I'm going to make sure that I'm in between these two axes, the blue and red, or the X and Z. And by doing that, I can make it thinner. And I like that size a lot better. And it looks more like what we have here. So that is actually pretty good. There's no cylinder in the back right there. There's only two, which is kind of peculiar. But that's the way that table was designed. So whatever. So let's go to the top view, and we'll hit Control D and just move this one over here. And it really is that simple. Just move it right there. Right there is actually good. See, right there is actually pretty good. So there we go. That one's there. It looks kind of weird. It looks like it could easily tilt to this side or to that side back there, but this is a real picture I found on the internet, and that's just the way that this one is. So go figure. And it looks like this one, this part right here follows the same exact mechanical ideology. All right. So now all we have to do is create this other piece that goes over here. And of course, we're going to do that using curves. But that's going to take a while to do, and I'm too lazy to draw new curves. So I'm going to actually cheat. And it's not actually cheating, it's just being more efficient. I'm going to take this piece right here, freeze its modeling. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it and move it on over. Now let's look at this one. This one's going to have to be a little bit longer than that one. And as a matter of fact, this one looks like it's too long, to be honest with you. Let me scale that down so it has more of a squarish type of shape to it. I'll scale it down to something like that. And I'm going to move this in like this. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Something like that. That looks a lot better. Now this one looks nice and long, narrow like this one. But it has kind of this curve that goes in. And over here is a curve that goes out. So here's what I'm going to do. going to take this guy here. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate him. I'm going to move him up. And I'm kind of just guessing the height here. From here to here up. And looks like it's going to be something like that maybe. Yeah, that'll work. Something like that. Okay, that works. Okay, now let's go ahead and do this. I have to make this kind of narrow piece right in here. So how am I going to do that? It's actually going to be a lot easier than it looks. I'm going to take this guy right here. And let me go to wireframe. I'm going to select all the edges that are right here in the middle. Right here. So, let me freeze modeling on that. I'm going to hit E to go to edge mode, and I'm going to drag select the box selection, pick all the edges in the middle. And I'm going to hit Shift D to split them right down the middle. So you can see we made a split right down the middle. I'll close that. And what I'm going to do is pretty simple. I'm going to select this edge right here. Actually, I'm going to select from this edge. I'm going to hit Alt, left click that edge to pick that entire range of edges right there. And all I'm going to do is push that backwards like so. Once that's pushed backwards, just a good amount, all I have to do is right click, hit bevel, increase that distance by a good amount. And I'm going to have to increase that distance more. Let's try something like 6. And I'm going to change the amount of rounding, max it out to 10. There we go. Now we got that nice round shape right there, which is exactly what I was going for. So now the top one has the opposite effect, where instead of kind of just going in on itself, it bulges out a little bit. So that's kind of a cool design there. So we're going to go to edge mode again. Make sure you pick all these edges. Shift D to split it down the middle one time. Now we're going to go to raycasting edge mode, which is I on the keyboard. Select this edge right there. Okay. Alt, left click to select that one to select the range in between. And that is an awesome way of quickly selecting and deselecting things. I'm going to push this one out. About this much, I think is going to be good. Yeah, something like that's good. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to bevel. I'm going to increase that distance to about 6. Looks good. I'm going to go to rounding and max it out. So now we have that nice shape that kind of bulges out slightly. So now we have this kind of shape that bulges out a bit, and this shape that kind of goes in on itself, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. I'm going to select those two, freeze modeling on them. I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay, we need a couple of cylinders here to create the support that connects those two. That is very easy to do. Let's recycle what we've already got. So I'm going to take this one, Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to go here to my front view. I'm going to move it up to about right here. I'm going to have it interpenetrate the bottom right there just a little bit. And I'm going to select these points and move them up so that they're interpenetrating there just a little bit. Now let's go to a top view just to make sure that it's in the middle, and it's not in the middle. So we'll move it to about down here. And that's about the middle right there. And I'm going to hit Control D. I'm going to move it over to the other side. And there we go. Very quick, very simple. Select all that, freeze modeling. So now we have those sort of just cylinder beam shapes right there that hold that up. And of course we need a couple more cylinders, one for back here and one for over here on the side. Now let's select the whole thing. Let's go to the top view because you can see this is positioned wrong. It needs to be actually moved over a bit, something like this. Okay. That way we can now take one of these cylinders, like this one for example, or actually let's take that one. Control D to duplicate, move it on over. place it right there in the middle of the pipe and the this top platform piece, and there you go. Now we'll take this one over here, Control D to duplicate it, move it on over, push it inward more, and that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, hit Alt 6 and bring back my clip over here. I accidentally closed it. And there we go. And that looks pretty good. It looks pretty accurate. Very similar to what we have in our picture over here. Okay, so we pretty much got all those details done. We just have to create that back piece. Now that back piece is going to take a little bit longer to create because we're going to have to go ahead and use a pretty cool technique to do that. It's going to take a while to set up, but after we set it up, it's going to allow us to create all these holes and things very quickly. So I'm going to end this video here, and in the next one, we're going to go ahead and get started on that back piece.